Hi, thanks for joining today. So now I'm going to give a very brief overview of the computational requirements of deep learning and some of the techniques being used to make them more efficient. I'm sure everyone's seen the very public release of OpenAI's ChatGPT and the flurry of competition that followed as big tech firms scrambled to release their own generative large language models. The open source community has also been really active in this field. A feature of these models that has appeared quite heavily in headlines is the costs associated with not only training them, but also deploying them. There are various estimates out there on how much it really costs, but safe to say they're exceptionally expensive to train, and they include tens of billions of parameters. So what's behind these breakthroughs, and are these costs an inevitable part of modern deep learning in the context of financial risk management? The answer is no, and this is because the cost of compute is a really important dynamic when considering risk systems and solutions. The cost of compute also depends on the number of parameters in the model, the training process, and the underlying architecture you are using. And compared with other industries, finance has a long modeling history and also has a history of trying to balance things like cost, speed, and accuracy. So before I go into that, I just want to give a quick overview of GPT and the underlying transformer architecture. Firstly, GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Transformer architectures were introduced back in 2017 with the paper Attention is All You Need. And attention is essentially a mechanism that allows the network to focus on specific words in a sentence while paying less attention to others. And they can also be split into two broad segments, the encoder and the decoder. Why is it so expensive? They're trained on massive corpuses of data pulled from the internet. They take a long time to train. Once they're deployed, they are iterative, auto-regressive models. They also have recency issues. Retraining them with up-to-date data is also really expensive. And there are multiple training stages, including a semi-supervised stage and a supervised stage. So there's been a general trend in machine learning research towards big models with billions of parameters. Do we want that in finance? While generative AI is exciting and there's research into using transformers for time series data forecasting, there's also a significant other trend for neural networks in finance, and this is to save compute or make compute efficient where possible as proxy functions. So despite how exciting GPT and other language models are, it's important to cut through some of the hype, especially as the financial services has a long legacy of model development, and one of the key requirements for institutions is reducing TCO and saving compute where possible. So even with cloud computing and paying as you go, you don't want to be hit with a huge cloud bill. GPT is also designed for generalized search, and these sorts of models aren't really necessary for the vast majority of use cases. In actuality, neural networks are being used to save computation in finance, and this is because in instances like market risk calculations and XVA calculations, they provide an alternative to costly simulation. And this is because neural networks are excellent function approximators, especially for problems that are defined as ill-posed. So finally, I want to mention some techniques being used to make these algorithms more efficient, and I personally think this is an exceptionally important area of research. If we take humans' ability to learn as the benchmark, we are energy efficient, continuous learners, and we need a remarkably small number of examples to learn. And neural network learning mechanisms are still fairly blunt, and they require a massive amount of training data. Some techniques include sparsifying the network, which involves constraining the activation and the connectivity, the weights in a network to make it smaller and more efficient. Transfer learning, which has been really successful in computer vision. You freeze the body of the network and then you retrain the later layers to learn the special task-specific features you need it to. And this can be considered analogous to large language models being called foundation models. In essence, they can be repurposed as the basis for other downstream tasks. Other techniques include fine-tuning, inference platform accelerators, training data augmentation, and training accelerators. And that's it from me. Thank you very much for listening.